talked about a bit about this off the stage. Crypto as a Durian. Daniel Barr, co-founder of SpaceCoin. Ladies and gentlemen, give him a big round of applause.
Hello? Okay, works. All right. I feel like Andreas Antonopoulos in his epic Bitcoin talks to empty rooms, so I'm gonna be really reflecting on that. Once the Durian mass adoption and hyper-Durianization is happening, you can look back to this as the genesis moment. So, any of you recognize what you see in the opening slide? Nobody? Okay, so this is durian flowers, but of a very different and special species called Durioloianus. So it's not like the Moshang one or the other more common varieties. And my talk will be about crypto as a durian, how we often perceive all the noise and things that are happening in crypto as casino tech 24/7, 365. This is just the spiky part and the noise from the outside. Actually, the inside is freedom and sovereignty technology, which is, when you really dig in, you'll find the rich nutrients and pungent flesh, right? And yeah, I basically also fixed the flag. You can submit it to government and we'll change it everywhere. So, quick background for my professional background. So I'm co-founder of SpaceCoin. We're building a satellite-based deep-in network for cryptographic applications. I'm also a farmer. I have a dragon fruit Holongo farm. Co-organizer of ETH Sydney, which is the counterpart organization of ETHKL, but in Sydney, Australia. Founder of a liquid fund, Bitforward, and the initiator of Durian DAO. And socials, if you're happy to catch up afterwards. So the quick outline of what I'll cover today is the brief mental history for computing, the internet, and then how it led us to crypto. And then once we get into crypto, a bit of the zoom in and the current status and what are the opportunities that lie ahead. So very brief history. When you think about computing, you usually think about maybe AI, maybe mobile apps, but it all started actually with the rigor of philosophy and then how it ended up being protocolized as mathematics and logic. And then fast forward some many years, we had compute instruments that essentially enabled mathematical protocols to be run on them and then to result in whatever it is that we need to calculate. These first examples for computers in the modern era, there were also some previous examples, but these first examples were task-specific computers. Task-specific because they actually can't perform everything, they can be designed to perform certain tasks. Fast forward some years, during the Second World War, there was a brilliant mathematician in the UK called Alan Turing, and Alan Turing conceptualized this concept of a general-purpose compute, essentially expanding that compute machine to be able to run any code. And this in itself, both from the computer science and mathematics point of view, it's like a really interesting and groundbreaking concept that maybe like hold it at the back of your mind because we'll get back to it. Theoretically, it can run any code, and then when you think about the general-purpose machine, the design space, the creativity that it can enable is infinite. Fast forward some years after that, there was the invention of the solid-state transistor. So essentially, instead of having mechanical parts and like entire rooms dedicated to be a computer, we started having electronic circuits embedded in silicon that allowed us to shrink and shrink and shrink, and eventually you have currently on your phone billions of transistors that enable more and more compute applications to be faster and greater. And then eventually we started having programming languages. So programming languages essentially allowed the software developer to interface into the electronics that then perform the mathematics, etc. And basically, we kind of democratized the access to engage in computing, and we started seeing how ubiquitous it is. It becomes human readable as well. And then eventually also we started having graphic user interface operating systems. So that would have been Linux Ubuntu or Mac or what you have on your phone, iOS or Android, etc. And that's like just a very brief wrap up to kind of like show how it becomes very abstracted, it becomes something you touch, but actually the underlying of it all goes down to mathematical applications running on the actual transistors. And then we basically got to the first internet. The first internet was a bit different to the internet we use today. So this was flashback to my high school days. It was chat rooms where we would be suddenly able to like run out of class and go to the computer lab and talk to people from all over the world, even if they're coming from like a country that you cannot travel to because of your passport restrictions or whatnot. And an interesting anecdote is this video of Pamela Anderson and Tommy enjoying the moment became quite quickly the most viewed video in human history in the year 1996. And the only reason it became that is because we had the internet as a global platform that allows people from everywhere to access to media. And that was, in some respects, an example that showed the potential of what later we saw commercialized as Netflix or other streaming for media. And when we look at the first internet, it was rather unstructured. It was rather basic. We would sometimes host websites on our own computers. There was no, DevOps for servers and stuff. It was all like rather inefficient, but there was something very emergent and creative in it. We didn't have emojis back then, so it was like really hardcore ASCII time. And then came the efficient internet era, which is basically instead of having to run everything on our own, we started having centralized intermediaries that would facilitate all of those different wonderful commercial applications, be it Google and search and Gmail, be it Facebook, social and commerce and Ali and WeChat and whatnot. So suddenly this really kind of exemplified what can be done once we have this digital organism across all the world. And it was really wonderful on the one hand. At the same time, what we started seeing, and now I think it becomes already common knowledge, that privacy is kind of compromised because oftentimes those centralized intermediaries are actually able to see all of our activity, to analyze us, and sometimes it's good, and oftentimes it can be abused. So essentially, like centralized trusted party is a risky thing. Then came the dawn of the blockchain era, with Bitcoin being the first example. And that essentially was PKI, so public key infrastructure, and the ability to prevent double spend. So essentially, kind of like the torrent network, except you have the ability to not just share infinitely a file, you have like a UTXO ledger. And that was pretty cool. Suddenly we had a large-scale peer-to-peer network which allowed us to have some form of internet-native money. But if you think about it, Bitcoin is in some respects quite limited because, okay, like I send you Bitcoin, someone else send Bitcoin, but what else? Like there isn't so much applications that run on it. In some respects, from blockchain point of view, it's a task-specific computer. Whereas people started thinking, okay, there isn't so many things that it enables, so like it's just like some random meme coin that shows the concept of having a distributed network. However, you remember Turing and his general purpose compute machine. So Saint Vitalik came at some point and proposed this concept of instead having just a Bitcoin ledger, you can have a distributed network that essentially is Turing machine. So you have a Turing complete distributed network, and he didn't come and say, okay, like you're going to develop all these wonderful things exactly ABC. It was really from point of view of like opening the design space from purely having just Bitcoin to having a completely general purpose machine. And then some people can be cynic and say like, okay, cool story, bro. What's the actual killer app? And we actually still hear the questions today. And the thing is that goes back to the Chad and the Virgin. Have some imagination, bro. When you have a general purpose machine, you can essentially run anything on it. This is one slide from market opportunities, and you start seeing that there's so many sectors that are open on the crypto space. Like most of these examples are related to Ethereum, but generally we're seeing also a newer generation of blockchains, and yeah, the design space for a distributed Turing complete network is infinite, as I see it. Now the question is, where are we today and where are we headed? So, as I see it, we have currently three options. There's where we are today, which is essentially Casino Tech 24/7, 365. And for those of you that have been in Singapore Token 2049, there was a talk by Murad Mahmudov about the meme coin supercycle. Basically, Murad claims that all of those projects that are claiming to develop novel technology are rubbish, and the only thing that we need to care about is meme coin. That's the holy grail of crypto. In my view, it's rather nihilist, and it basically leads to a dead end. I don't know if you've seen those things, but in some countries where gambling is allowed, Australia, where I come from, it's a very sad scene. Like you see sometimes retirees that they don't have so much in life, and basically they are finding themselves in front of those slot machines being drained by whoever is operating it. And in my view, basically, if this is what we're building, that's not the reason I came to crypto, and I doubt it that any one of you too. And if I may, Murad Mahmudov, just because I've been in the space long enough, has already blown one hedge fund before, and that was right before a wonderful DeFi bull market in 2020-21. So that's the exactly example of a classic KOL using his influence to psyop and use audience as exit liquidity. And that's just one example of such bad actor, in my opinion, that shouldn't be inspiring where we're headed today. So, okay, if we ruled out the Casino Tech 24/7, what other options? So another option that we can take is surveillance blockchain. So I think oftentimes we like to talk about blockchain as some utopian system. But when you think about it, when you get to extremely granular level of tokenization of everything, which is a part of the novelty of what blockchain enables, then you're able to look at every microtransaction that everyone did. You're able to analyze them. You're able to imagine if you have a permissioned system, you're able to, at the tap of a button, you're able to take them out and forbid them from using something if they were, for example, an actor that the state doesn't like. And essentially, we're ending up in an authoritarian wet dream. And yeah, I don't feel like this is the reason that we got here too. So what's our other options in that case? One of the things that I think is important is to ask ourselves, who are our heroes? And basically, sometimes if we're lost, it's important to reflect on those heroes. What are the qualities that we see in those heroes that can inspire us to build a better future? So maybe to start, for real, what makes a hero? Maybe pedigree and maybe wealth, Lambos. So if someone came from MIT, Stanford, trading firm in Wall Street, has Lambos or like has been in Y Combinator, do you reckon this is a maybe good list of credentials? So these are some of the examples of who, in my view, are not my hero. I know that some of you may have different opinion, but this is my personal view. I think we've seen those times and times again. SBF, Do Kwon, Martin Shkreli. these are just some examples.
He's supposed to be.
So then, okay, like I'll give a non-exhaustive list of who I think are a worthy hero. It's creators that are making art for the sake of art. And even sometimes business is a form of art too. It's the inventor of the LSD. It's Raman, mathematician, Feynman, physicist, Hal Finney, which some people allegedly think is Satoshi. Basically, those people aren't only financially motivated or selfishly motivated. They're doing something that truly is pushing the dent on human experiences. And there's also like some examples related to crypto history or maybe the internet's history that I had another exhibition with an artist some couple of years ago. I'll just go very briefly on it. This is the list of Kimis. It was from an NFT collection that's called the Kimis. There's Aaron Schwartz, founder of Reddit, Kim.com, still fighting at the Supreme Court in New Zealand. Snowden, Julian Assange, Virgil Griffith from the Ethereum Foundation that tried to bring peace by promoting open source technologies cross-border, South Korea, North Korea, and yeah, US didn't like it so much. Ross, which is the founder of Silk Road. And more recent sad addition to this list is Alexei Pertsev, the founder of Tornado Cash, which was actually, okay, we don't have so much time, I'll start to run through. Okay, so the path forward as I see it is we need to bring back the joy of building. And the joy of building is different for different people. You need to find the rich nutrient pulp inside of you. And one of the things that I'm working on is expanding the trusted party, distributed trusted party to extraplanetary jurisdictions with SpaceCoin. Very broadly speaking, essentially, we have a network of satellite that is served as a root of trust in space, and we're then enabling to safeguard free market tokenization beyond just the bounds of planet Earth. I'll talk about this another time. Another thing that I take joy of building in is permaculture and farming. So Durian will be the future, but for now I'm farming a few other things. And I guess, kind of to start wrapping up, the question that I think is important to find the answer for each of us separately is, what is it that is really your unique calling that you can find the joy of building through? And I genuinely believe that each and every person has something unique to follow and to essentially like contribute to this space. And yeah, welcome to keep in touch. And thanks for the early Durian believers that came through.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Everybody, a round of applause for Daniel.